Here's my current personal take, using some open source, and just kind of what I think. All right, where we sit in Ukraine, and what's going to happen, potentially over the next 48, 72, 96 hours. Um, Personal opinion: Russia has two primary objectives. I actually think their first one is right here. I think it's Odessa. Right? Because they already have Sevastopol. They already own the Crimean Peninsula. Right? That's already annexed. That's already part of Russia. Um, what Odessa gives Russia is another deep water port on the Black Sea. Um, so deep water port on the Black Sea gives you access, um, into the Mediterranean, right? Because you can run it down through Istanbul, into the Mediterranean, and then you have access to the world from there. Um, so it gives them options. It gives them the deep water port on the Ukrainian side, right? On like Ukrainian mainland, is what Odessa gives them. Sevastopol gives them, right, the natural deep water port on the Crimean Peninsula. So that's Russia's natural deep water port right now. So I think they attack to seize Odessa immediately. I think it's first move. Because there's so much they can do with that. Beyond, you know, and phase two, phase three, um, of their operation, right? Um, I can offload massive numbers of troops onto the Ukrainian mainland through Odessa, right? Um, so I think that's the first objective. That's the first thing I would take. And they're postured well. If you look at Crimea, what they have, uh, we're looking at least an armored core sitting on Crimea right now. So really pretty easy to get that to Odessa, um, uh, and seize that port. And once they do that, they can bring on follow-on forces into the port, right, and then to continue movement. When we look up north and west, open source has 3 airborne battalions templated, along the border inside of Belarus. But that's west of Kiev, right? So that's pretty pretty key. And that 3 airborne battalion gives Russia a lot of flexibility, um, right? Because they can, right? They're paratroopers, so we can load them in, we can drop them in, um, early. And I think what they'll do with those 3 battalions is I think they are going to come in, generally along this axis, and they will conduct a block, right? And they're going to prevent Ukrainian ability to maneuver and reinforce Kiev, right? So I think everyone thinks that the attack is coming east to west. I think they're going to block west, right? And no one's moving west out of Kiev, right? Because you got an airborne brigade. The airborne brigade is sitting there. Also in Belarus, templated is a mechanized infantry division. Um, and I think once that block's in place, right, that mechanized infantry division is going to attack south. Right now, they have to cross some major rivers, so there's going to be some bridging operations going on, potentially. Right, so that's not easy. But I would say that mechanized infantry division is going to come pretty much straight down into the west end of Kiev, right? And they'll have to hook into the city there, but I think they're going to come around from the west, right? So you're going to have an airborne brigade blocking. You're going to have a mech infantry division attack, right? They're going to isolate the west half of the city, right? Because you see how Kiev's positioned. Russia's going to use the terrain to isolate the city, right? So it's going to be Odessa, the Airborne Brigade, and isolating Kiev to the west. Okay, I think those are the first three things that happen. Currently, there's template another mech infantry division, and right here, this corner, right at the border of Belarus, Russia, Ukraine. I think that's the mech infantry division that's going to attack south, southwest, and they're going to come in and they're going to isolate the east of Kiev. Right? I think they're going to isolate east of Kiev. And then if you look along the east, there's couple more mechanized infantry divisions. When you get straight east, there's a couple mechanized infantry corps down there. You see some army headquarters that are forward already. So the Russian command structure is in place. The ground forces are in place to affect this. So we're looking at 40 battalions, 40 Russian battalions in and around the Ukrainian border, whether they're in Belarus, they're in Russia, or Russian Crimea. 40 battalions right there on the borders. So roughly 90 to 100,000 Russian personnel, 1,200 tanks, close to 3,000 armored personnel carriers / infantry fighting vehicles. Figure those are BMP2, BMP3 variants, some BTR-80s, BTR-90s, 1,600 cannons and rocket artillery pieces, right? Because Russia loves indirect fires, and what we saw in Crimea was a lot of artillery, right? The old Soviet rolling barrage of artillery. We kind of saw that already in Crimea. Not 7, 8 years ago, right? So we've seen it. It's in place. Anticipating roughly 300 fixed-wing aircraft in support, 250-ish rotary wing aircraft in support, right? And that's going to be a mix of attack and lift. 75 ships, boats in direct support. All right, so they're going to have some kind of load on, load off, right, capability that I think they're going to use to get tanks and BMPs from Crimea into Odessa. I think they're just going to cut right across the Black Sea, and they'll go overland, which is not an easy route going from Crimea to Odessa overland. I think they'll also have an amphibious assault. I think they have that capability, and I think this is a great time for Russia to put that into play. And we know Russia has 6 subs. Where are they at? We don't know. They're subs, right? But they have attack subs that are assume they're in position, then they're in the Black Sea, at least one, probably 2, in direct support of operations in Ukraine. So there's a lot of capability. That's my initial quick look. I just decided to do this like a half hour ago. Put a map, throw some graphics on it real quick, and just talk out of my ass what I think is happening. Right, I'm retired. I don't have access to top secret information. I just have access to some open source that I can pull from, and then my brain. But I think that's what they're going to do. I think everyone thinks that Russia's going to come east to west and just shove everything into Poland. I don't think that's the game. I think they're going to isolate, and they have forces positioned to do that. I think they really want Odessa, and they want Odessa early. Okay, because that deep water port gives them a lot of capability. I think they isolate and choke off Kiev the first 24 hours. Um, that's a initial, like, really quick objective. Again, we're isolating Kiev, and we're going to cause the government to capitulate, right? You saw that in Crimea right away, right? That airborne brigade that's up here in Belarus now, right? We saw them in Crimea. There's BMDs, right? Like, there were BMDs in YouTube videos. You can look them up, rolling around Sevastopol. We know the BMD only exists in these units. Guess who it was, right? It's the Russian airborne brigade. So yeah, Odessa, block west of Kiev with airborne infantry, and then they're going to take 2 mech infantry divisions and isolate Kiev, and they're going to use the natural terrain and tie into that really help Russia, pinch off the capital, and consequently they will move those forces east to west, but those are going to be to reinforce, follow, and assume, and cause a defeat of the Ukrainian army. I don't think many people are looking at the problem this way. They're looking east-west. They're looking linear. They're not looking at Russia's capabilities and posture. Hope they are. I hope we got some smart folks looking at this and advising Ukraine and NATO partners on how this is probably going to go down. This is how I would do it. If I'm Russia, I use my artillery mostly in the east, um, and I go in and to isolate Kiev rapidly. I'll assume risk there with less artillery. Focus my artillery in the east because that's where a lot of Ukrainian units already are. I know there's Canadian advisors who are in the eastern part of Ukraine. So that's going to be a little sketch for Russia to deal with. But I think they're going to, that initial phase, those, Odessa and Kiev, objectives 1 and 2, that they're running for them really quick. And then the east of the country is just going to get pounded. You don't want to be east of 34 degrees. It's going to get pounded with artillery. This has potential to get bad really fast. Flip side is going to be, I think it's going to be over really fast. I think Russia will cause Ukraine to capitulate pretty quick. Ukraine's tough though, tough people, right? These are the old Rus Vikings, right? Kiev was the capital of the Rus. If you go back, 800 years in the past. So believed to be these are Danish, maybe Swedish, Vikings, Norsemen, who settled in this area, right? So, some tough people. Consequently, that's part of the reason Putin really wants Ukraine. That's part of Russia, because these are the Rus, right? These are this is something he sees the Rus as critical, for Russian nationalism, right? Because if you look at the Russian language, there's different words that mean Russian, right? There's Rossi and there's Ruski, right? One's a Russian citizen, one's a Russian, right? And Russians mean more than Russian citizens. So, um, Putin views himself as a Russian, and he views Ukrainians as Russians, as the original, right? It's critical to that information campaign that they're continuing to try to promulgate and build up. So, um, I think Ukraine is a big part of what Putin sees as his enduring legacy. Realize old Vlad, he's getting up there in age. He has been in control in Russia for about 21, 22 years now. Um, so he's very experienced. He's very good at what he does. Um, American presidents are smart people, but Joe Biden's been on the job 1 year as the president. Vladimir Putin's been on the job for 22 years. Right, that's 22 times more experience than Joe Biden has at playing this game. Um, he's better than Biden. He's better than Trump at this game. He's better than Obama was at this game. He's better than Bush was at this game. Right, and to top it off, before becoming the mayor of Leningrad and becoming the premier / prime minister back and forth of Russia, he's a career KGB officer. He's a professional spy. Um, it worked primarily in East Germany, right? The most oppressive, brutal communist government in the Eastern Bloc was East Germany, and that's where Putin worked, right? That's what he built. That's what you know he operated in. That's the environment he operated in. He's not a good guy, but he's incredibly intelligent. Very good at what he does. He's very experienced. He's a Tom Clancy novel, character. He's Jack Ryan. That's Vladimir Putin, man. Um, my God, he's in his 70s. He's up in age, and he's probably starting to think about, what's my enduring legacy? What do I leave Russia um, when I'm gone? Well, I'm going to leave Russia better than I found it, and I'm returning Ukraine to Russia because this is part of Russia, right? These are the Rus. These are Ruski, right? These are our people, So I've tied our history back, right? And made Russia whole again. So I think that's something that's really what he's looking at here. It's a super power play. He's got the pieces in motion. I think he has an international community that's not going to stand up to him. They're really not. I think and when they don't, I think it's really dangerous because I think of the other players on this planet, and the realm of great power competition. You know, I Russia starts having success in Ukraine. Does that embolden China to annex Taiwan? We know that's part of China's end game. We know that's part of China's strategy is to take Taiwan. Do they do that? Are they emboldened when the international community doesn't do anything about Russia annexing Ukraine? I say yes. Right? So, complex strategic problem set um, for international leaders. This is really testing NATO. All right, so is NATO a true alliance? Are we really allies? Are we really military allies within NATO? Or is it a paper tiger? We know how Turkey's leaning. Ukraine, part of this Ukraine game plays. Turkey's a part of this, right? We know Turkey's in bed with Russia. Erdogan's in bed with Putin because Ukraine is critical, and the Black Sea is critical to getting cheap Russian gas, natural gas, petroleum from Russia into Turkey. That's what Turkey wants. Turkey's okay with this, and they're a member of NATO. They're a treaty ally of the United States. But they want Russia to invade Ukraine and annex it because it builds the lines of communication, right? Those transmission lines for petroleum and natural gas that's gonna feed Turkey for hundreds of years potentially. Turkey wants this, right? Right? You can see in the little that's the Black Sea. This big landmass right here, that's Turkey, yo. Look, they want Russia to have Odessa, Sevastopol, because we can bring that right across the Black Sea into Turkey easily. Right? I just need Ukraine as a part of that system, as part of that network. So NATO's going to be tested. Treaties are going to be tested. Allies are going to be tested. We're going to learn who allies really are here in the next couple of weeks. And I don't think Turkey is. I don't think Turkey's an ally. I think Turkey is in bed with Russia on this. I understand why, but you also really want to be a member of NATO. So consequently, that's why they're not a member of the EU, right? In the Eurozone. So, because that all kind of got kiboshed. So, a lot to think about, a lot to pay attention to, and absorb over the next couple of days. But that's my awful TED talk for February 14th, 2022. All right. And it was an awful Super Bowl.